Howdy, y'all. Nult reporting from Deep Quote headquarters, where it's Casual Friday. With mere hours until the release of Deep Quote's new single, Book of the Dead, I am excited to pick up where we left off last time. We already reviewed how Deep Quote died, and now we will learn how Nutmegg Greg heroically brought Mr. Deep back to write an ingenious song about it. But to understand exactly what Nutmegg Greg did, you must first understand what happens to us when we die. When you are freed of your corporeal shackles, there is the potential to explore the many planes of existence that we are incapable of venturing towards when bound to the organism. However, this requires determination and a strong will to focus one's attention. Without this, one enters a state much like that of dreamless sleep, and will wander aimlessly in the plane they are in, or sometimes sink to lower planes. With effort, one can spiral up or outwards to the planes of increasing abstraction. Please understand that we are now discussing a subject that conventional language cannot accurately describe. The planes are not higher, lower, upwards, downwards, inwards, or outwards per se, but all exist concurrently everywhere. However, these terms serve as metaphors in a feeble attempt to convey to you the inexpressible. Mr. Deep traveled to the furthest reaches of abstraction, to the plane that ancient mystics called by many different names, and is most conventionally known as God. Mr. Deep refuses to discuss this part of his journey. Instead, he composed a musical theme that expresses his experience, which can be heard in the middle of his new single, Book of the Dead, which will be available for listening July 15th, despite the incompetent efforts of the Tuskahasee Police Department and their attempts to restrict Mr. Deep's freedom of speech. This part of the death experience, in which one travels the various planes of existence, is akin to what many religions would call heaven or hell. However, reincarnation is also true, sort of. Typically, reincarnation is conceptualized as the universe's system of moral bookkeeping. If you are good, you are reincarnated in a better life. If you are bad, you are reincarnated in a worse life. But this is not how it works. In most cases, you are simply born back into the life you just lived. So for the majority of people, they die, enter a state much like deep, dreamless sleep, and are born back into the same life they just died from. This is why people sometimes experience déjà vu. They have already lived this life countless times. The whole process takes approximately 230 million Earth years, or 1 galactic year, but to them it passes in the blink of an eye. At first, being born back into the same life didn't seem so bad to Mr. Deep, because he loves being Deep Quote and fully enjoyed the life he led. However, he faced a conundrum. He knew that his life would again end by the hand of Frank the Alien, thus preventing him from writing and releasing the epic song about his experience, Book of the Dead. Luckily, Nutmegg Greg helped him out. Mr. Deep met Nutmegg Greg while traveling the highest planes of existence. He was surprised to see anyone else there, because while it is all-encompassing and technically includes everyone and everything, it is a rather desolate place. However, Nutmegg Greg uses the power of nutmeg to travel the higher planes regularly. He is able to consume higher quantities of nutmeg than any being in all the universe, which gives him unique and powerful capabilities, such as the ability to manipulate space-time. Nutmegg Greg listened to Deep Quote's dilemma and suggested a plan. Deep Quote would be born back into his old life, as the universe intended. Nutmegg Greg would then use the power of nutmeg to travel back in time to when Deep Quote was born, kidnap baby Deep, and transport him to an alternate dimension of space-time in which Frank blundered his attempt to kill Mr. Deep, which is the dimension in which all of you reside. Nutmegg Greg snapped this selfie while kidnapping Mr. Deep. Pretty cool, huh? So, in conclusion, Nutmegg Greg didn't really resurrect Mr. Deep because he didn't exactly bring him back to life, just manipulated the inner workings of the universe to make it seem that way. Then again, in this timeline, Mr. Deep technically never really died either, as that was in his other life, which was in a parallel timeline from this one. So I suppose this whole story was misleading from the beginning. I am going to call Nutmegg Greg to see if he can bring me back to redo this. What a mess.